and I'm glad to be here. And I'm glad, alcoholics always say that, they're glad to be any place. But I'm particularly glad to be here. Proud to be asked to speak in my home group. That's I don't know why that's difficult to talk to the home group, but they say that needs to be keeps you honest. But I would hate to think that I talk at any time at an AA function and I'm not honest. In fact, I try to live my life in such a way that there's nothing about my life that I can't share with my program. And so I don't know why that is, but if I had my preference, I'd be talking to a group of total strangers. In fact, my ideal place to talk is a bunch of alcoholics who are packed together in a room. The room is too small for the number of alcoholics, whether it's a big room or a small room, because it seems to me that alcoholics packed together generate energy. That it's love is what it is, and it fills the room and invigorates everything. Well, in fact, as I say that, I was thinking I wanted to welcome all the survivors of Ruth Weaver's birthday party, because that was that kind of an event. If you missed it, it's like so many AA meetings. Oh, you should have been there. You ever had a meeting where you said, "What was the meeting like?" And they said, "Oh, you should have been there." And you should have been to this one, because it's amazing that many people would get together during rotten weather just to celebrate the fact somebody's sober, and the celebration of sobriety is what it is. And I'm glad that I thank Ruth for staying sober so we could do that. Very nice of her. And I want to congratulate the birthday people and welcome our one visitor from Hawaii. Welcome you back, Jim. And welcome the newcomers, those who were reluctant to stand up until the last minute, and those who didn't stand up at all, because there's always some that are here. And if you're here and if you're really delighted to be here and you think this is wonderful and this is just great, and you're just thrilled to death with this whole thing, and you're happy about being here, we may not be able to help you. But on the other hand, you think this is the dumbest thing you ever saw, and it's all corny and trite and silly and babyish and childish and a lot of other dumb things, and you wish you were any place but here. Fine, you belong. I mean, you're in the right place, whether you like it or not. If you don't think it's the right place, then it's the right place. So we're glad you're here. And we know that you're not glad you're here, and that's all right. We don't care whether you're glad or not, because we're glad. And just keep coming back, and you'll get gladder. And in fact, that's what happened to me. It's Frank. I remember the night. I don't remember. Frank used to come and pick me up at the hospital, and in the nut ward of the hospital I was on the staff of. And all I remember about his story was that it was lengthy. It was an interminable story. I had no idea what he said, except to the last sentence. I remember he finally said, "Well, that's my story. I'm going to the meeting tonight. Would you like to go along?" And I said, "Hell no, I won't like it. But I'll go," because I figured he'd go back and squeal to that dumb psychiatrist that brought him in. Because there I was sitting in the nut ward with all these problems. I had brain tumor, and they'd missed it. And all these things that were going on, and misdiagnoses and mismanagement and poor medical care, and this dumb psychiatrist that couldn't see that my problems were strictly marital. And he walked up behind me one day when I'm thinking of all these things that are going on, and he said, wanted to know if I would talk to a man from Alcoholics Anonymous. And I thought, God almighty, Doc, don't I have enough problems of my own without trying to help some drunk from AA, you know? And I could tell by the look on his face that he thought it was a good idea. And that's the one thing about being on a nut ward. You find out on a nut ward that happiness on a nut ward is having a happy psychiatrist. They have a certain amount of power over you. And to make him happy, I said yes, and in no time at all, Frank came stomping into the room yelling, "My name is Frank, and I'm an alcoholic, ha, 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 ha." And I thought, I was embarrassed for him. I mean, my God, the only thing in life he had to brag about was the fact that he was an alcoholic. And I thought, geez, why did he lower your voice? These people all think I'm a nut. Why don't we leave it at that, you know? He took me to a meeting. I have no idea what meeting it was. I don't know where we went. I don't know what they said. I don't know who read or who led or who talked or what went on at all. I don't know anything about the meeting, but I know it had a really profound effect on the psychiatrist. He was delighted. In fact, he was more than delighted. He wanted to know all about it. He wanted to know, what's this about a book? What's this about steps? What other kind of meetings do they have? Where else are you going to be? What other meetings are you going to do? I thought, my God, I've got me an alcoholic psychiatrist, and he's ashamed to go, so he's sending me. And I wondered how many meetings I'd have to go to before I could get him sober. And so I went to all the meetings I could go to, and that's how I remember one night. I have no idea how many meetings it was later. Frank says, "Well, tonight I'm going to take you down to Laguna Beach because they've got," and I don't even know what it was he said they had, but you must have had it, because I still keep coming back to the meetings back here, and it's been 25 years now. And in fact, this is my home group. This is the Saturday night Laguna Canyon Club. But we moved away for a while. We went moving around the country, chasing jobs, and we were away for 5 or 6 years. And when I finally moved back to this area, and so I could come back to this meeting, and the meeting had changed. It wasn't the same. It was rowdy. It was noisy. It was cliquish. It was a real click. This meeting had really deteriorated. I felt real bad about it. I kept trying it out and it didn't get any better. I told my sponsor, I'm going to have to change and get a different Wednesday night meeting. And I thought, well, I'll go tonight the last time. And at that time, Johnny Crean was elected secretary. And I, on the spur of the moment, without thinking about it, I walked up to him. I says, "You got any jobs open?" And he says, "Yeah, we need somebody for kitchen cleanup." And so Bill Nichols and a couple of other people decided to help me, and we started cleaning up the kitchen. And you know, it's amazing how this meeting shaped up when it had a clean kitchen. Yeah. You know, it's really amazing. And if you ever have trouble with this meeting or any other meeting, check out the kitchen. That may be where the problem is, in spite of what you think it is. And this group's been fine. In fact, the clique, the way to break up a clique is to join it. Yeah. The clique is not a clique from the inside. And so it's just a word of wisdom there. Anyway, I said I was an alcoholic. I'm glad I'm an alcoholic. I thoroughly enjoy being an alcoholic. If that bothers you newcomers, that's okay. Just get a sponsor and tell them what a dumb thing you heard in an AA meeting. But I enjoy being an alcoholic because I enjoy this way of life. I thoroughly enjoy living the AA way of life. It's and I can't imagine enjoying the AA way of life if I wasn't an alcoholic. And I'm glad I'm a full-blown alcoholic. I don't have to go out and keep testing it anymore. And it's strange how much. It's strange to me how much I enjoy AA and enjoy being an alcoholic and enjoy this way of life when I wasn't even an alcoholic when Frank was bringing me here. I had problems, and I drank, of course. We live in a drinking society. Everybody drinks. I mean, people would think you're weird if you didn't drink. So I drank, and I had a lot of problems, but I wasn't one of those dumb alcoholics. And I wasn't an alcoholic when I came to these meetings. And I only came to get this dumb psychiatrist off my back, get enough brownie points so I could get discharged. And once I got discharged, I had no intention to come back anymore. And but what I found out was that Max liked the meetings. Of course, once I found out she liked them, then I could use that against her. When she didn't act up right, I decided I wasn't going to AA anymore. And that worked all right for a couple of weeks. And then she got the idea, we lived up in Anaheim near Disneyland, and she got the idea that she would get in the car and drive down to Laguna Beach to go to the meetings by herself. Can't even drive the freeway, but somehow she found out how to get down here, down here by herself and come to the meeting by herself. Have you ever tried that? Have you ever tried sitting at home drinking while your non-alcoholic spouse is off laughing it up at an AA meeting? Yeah. Yeah. I found it real boring, and so I had to come back to the meetings to find out what she's laughing about. And I found they laugh at AA, they laugh at all kinds of stuff. They laugh at all kinds. They laugh at things. I found it embarrassing. They laugh at things they ought to be ashamed of. Even laughed at their drinking, for God's sake. One time I found myself laughing, and I haven't had a drink since. But it took 7 months. I was going to meetings for 7 months. I had always thought you got alcoholism by drinking alcohol. And that's not true. You get drunk drinking alcohol. But you get alcoholism by associating with other alcoholics. It's a contagious disease. It's a virus. It affects your brain. It goes in through your ears. And you sit, you laugh, but if you're here an alcoholic, you don't laugh because it's very dangerous. You sit here listening to things that are going on at the meeting, and you get, all of a sudden listening, you get the idea, gee, I did something like that. I felt like that when I did that. You suppose I might be a boom, just like that. You're an alcoholic. Yeah. It's the strangest thing. The minute you suspect it, you already got it. Yeah. And you can't get rid of it. There's no way to get rid of it. In fact, you can't even get any sympathy around here. You say, I think maybe I might be an alcoholic. They just like, don't keep coming back. They're glad to have you. They think it's a big thrill to give you a disease, and I didn't want it. I thought I don't want this. I thought I'll give it to somebody else. That made it worse. The more you give it away, the more you got it, and in fact, I just keep coming back to meetings and things keep getting worse. My alcoholism was getting away. I keep telling you, it's a progressive disease. And it was progressive all the time I was drinking, but it's been progressive all the time I haven't been drinking. I mean, I'm much more alcoholic now than I was when I first became alcoholic. And when I first became alcoholic, I was hardly alcoholic at all. Just barely alcoholic of a mild kind of alcoholic, as a matter of fact. In fact, there were a lot of things I wasn't. I wasn't a wino. I wasn't a lush. I wasn't a drunkard. I certainly wasn't a skid row bum. But I was allergic to alcohol. I react peculiarly to drug alcohol. Like was mentioned here earlier tonight. I can't drink socially, sensibly, safely, sanely. I can't drink worth a damn, as a matter of fact. And it's best if I don't drink. And yet the problem is that I can't not drink. I can't drink, and yet I can't not drink. I have a body that doesn't handle alcohol at all well. In fact, I have a body that says, my God, we can't drink. I mean, alcohol raises our blood pressure. We have to take blood pressure pills. It activates our ulcer. We have to take treatment for our ulcer. It raises the uric acid. It raises the cholesterol. It raises our blood sugar. We have to take anti-diabetes pills. It gets skin rashes. Liver function tests go abnormal. We do weird and peculiar things when we drink. We stagger. We can't talk well. We can't think well. We just can't handle alcohol worth a damn. And my brain says, oh, what the hell? My brain says, one little drink never hurt anybody. I just react peculiarly to alcohol. One of the things it does, alcohol makes me thirsty. That's one of the phenomenal things about the fact that I haven't had a drink for several years now. It's not only that I haven't had a drink for several years, but I am not even thirsty. And yet if I take a drink, I know I'll be thirsty. I mean, alcohol makes me thirsty. And The last drink I had years ago is still calling me to have one more. It still calls me. It's less and less loudly all the time. But I react. 9 out of 10, as I see it, 9 out of 10 of the people who drink alcohol react to it one way, and they're called social drinkers. In fact, the way I see it, they don't seem to react at all. But it seems kind of a waste of alcohol. But 1 out of 10 of the people that drink alcohol react to it differently, and they're called alcoholic. And that doesn't strike me as odd at all. I've been around medication since I was 4 years old, when my dad bought a house drugstore combination. I literally grew up in a drugstore. And then I went into pharmacy school and then medical school, and I've been around medicine all my life. And I've never seen a medication yet, to which everybody doesn't react to it the same, except for those people that react different. And in fact, the PDR, physician's desk reference, is so thick. It's on every doctor's desk every year, new issue, free of charge. It just appears there. You buy them in the bookstore. It's full of examples of how people react differently to drugs, differently than maybe they ought to. And I'm one of those. I react oddly to the drug alcohol. My earliest recollection of that goes back to, in fact, when I first got to AA, I thought that's what you're supposed to do when you get to AA. First thing you got to do is figure out why you drank, and then explain why you drank. I hear people doing it all the time. They're telling me why they drank, and some of them even say they drank because they like the taste of it. You would drink it if it tasted like gasoline. But I think we drink because we have to. I think we drink because we're alcoholic. I think that's what an alcoholic is. But when I first was trying to think of why did I drink in the first place, my mind went back to church dinner dances. We go to church dinner dances. I hate church dinner dances. I was a druggist in a small town, or grew up in a drugstore in a small town, and you have to go to the church dinner dances. You can't not go. You got to build up your business and so on. And I don't like church dinner dances because a lot of people at church dinner dances, and people give me more trouble than anybody. And at these dinner dances, you have to talk. You can't not talk at a church dinner. You have to talk. In fact, you have to talk chit-chat. And chit-chat. I hate chit-chat. I don't like to talk chit-chat. And you have to dance at a church dinner dance. You can't not dance at a church dinner. There's no such thing as not dancing at a church dinner dance, because every church dinner dance has at least one hyperactive woman who you're sitting there minding your own business, and she runs up to you and says, "Come on, Paul, let's dance." You know? And I say, "No, I don't dance." They say, "Oh, sure you do," and drag you out on the floor and prove that you don't dance. You know, and well, the only way I found out I could go to a church dinner dance was to have a few drinks before I go. I have to be very careful at church dinner drink and not drink too much. I mean, all my life I was worried that people would get the mistaken notion I drank too much. But you have to drink some. As I say, they would think you were weird. But I would have a few drinks before I went to the church dinner dance. In fact, I have a couple of drinks before I went to church dinner dance. And what it did, as I recall now, it would relax me mentally and it would relax me physically. It would relax me mentally, and I could talk, chit-chat. I was real good. Oh, I was a good chit-chat talker. I could chit-chat with the best chit-chatters there. And it would relax me physically, and I could dance. Dance good, too, by God. That was a good... Today I don't drink and I don't dance. But anyway, it worked for a little while. I had a few drinks. It relaxed me physically, and I could dance, talk to me mentally, and I could chit-chat, which we were fine. The trouble was, as I see it now, looking back on it, the two got out of sync. It would be like I hadn't even begun to relax mentally yet, and I would get too relaxed physically. It would affect my speech and my tongue and my lip, and I would talk slowly and deliberately so nobody would notice, you know. Or I'd reach for something and knock it down, or I would trip when there was nothing to, or I'd find myself lying there. looking very serene, you know. And my mind would say, "Get up, you fool. People will think you're drunk." And my mind would say, "What do you mean, get up? We're paralyzed from the ears down, you know." And I would lie there thinking, isn't that strange that I can't move? Isn't that strange that I have a couple of drinks and I'm paralyzed from the ears down? I've never heard of anybody got paralyzed on a couple of little drinks, you know. And I thought, I must be allergic to this stuff, and I'm going to have to ask somebody about that someday. I was thinking of maybe a allergy professor or something, but I never found anybody to ask. You can't ask questions like that of just anybody. You have to be very careful. They may not know any more about it than you do, but they're liable to say, "Well, it affects you that way. Why don't you just not drink it, for God's sake?" You know. I didn't want to know what to do about it. I just want to know what was happening. And then the other thing would happen, there would be times when I wouldn't have even begun to relax physically yet, and I would get too relaxed mentally. It'd be like I'd be off doing something, and it's as if all my brain cells would get together and say, "Oh, what the hell, he's drinking anyhow. Let's go on home." Yeah, yeah. And my body would go on doing things, you know, and my brain would be home in bed, you know, and I would try to figure out what my body had been doing. And I have never, to this day, I have never figured out how to recall something that wasn't recorded at the time that it happened, you know. And the longer I drank, the less predictable it was as to what was going to happen when I drank. And yet I ended up in AA, and they'd come to these meetings, and I wasn't an alcoholic. Didn't even want to be an alcoholic. It never occurred to me that it would be a good idea to be an alcoholic. My mother had never suggested, when you grow up, why don't you become president of AA? You know, no school counselor had ever said, "What about being an alcoholic? They have a lot of fun. Why don't you be an alcoholic?" It never occurred to me there was any advantages to being an alcoholic. And I was working hard to not be an alcoholic. And I was sitting in one of these meetings, and I heard somebody say, "They just blurted it right out." I have to be careful putting my hands on my face. I touching my nose, and Ina had somebody take a picture of me the other day when I was touching my nose. Now she claims I was picking my nose. She's mean. She looks nice, but she's mean, basically. She has a mean streak. Ina was 46 years sober the other day. Anyway, I guess even with that many years sobriety, you still have a mean streak. I don't know, what was I talking about? Is anybody listening? I wasn't. Anyway, I remember what it was. Somebody stood up there and they said, and this has affected me to this day. It still affects me to this day. They said, "I would rather be in AA by mistake than out there by mistake." And to this day, that impresses me. It impresses me. Drunkalogos impress me. Stories of drinking impress me. And descriptions of our disease and our behavior impress me. It impresses me the price we appear to be willing to pay to continue to practice our disease. We appear to be willing, and we even defend our right to go on doing it because we don't know we're doing it, that we're sick people trying to get well, not bad people trying to be good. And compare the cost of practicing our disease compared to the cost of being in recovery. I'd much rather be here by mistake than out there by mistake. Another thing I heard at a meeting about that time was somebody said AA stands for altered attitudes. I was surprised to hear that. It never occurred to me that my attitudes could be anything other than a reflection of what's going on in my life. And yet they were saying you have a choice of attitude. Our attitudes are our own choices. They're not just passively a reflection of what's going on in our lives unless we allow it to be, or unless we don't even know we have a choice. I'm impressed with how the fact is that in AA we have many choices But until you know you have a choice, you don't have a choice. But once you have a choice, then you have the responsibility of making the appropriate choice. You have the responsibility of taking the choice and not blaming it on somebody else. Ooh, I even hated to say that, as a matter of fact, because my whole life was based on that. My life was always based on what was happening to me. My motto for years was, if you had my wife, you'd drink too. If you had my life, you'd drink too. Max and I have been, Max drove me to drink for years. I think we were married 28 years when we first came to the program. And last December, we were married 52 years. And she doesn't drive me to drink anymore. And because one of the things we've done is that we've declared our emotional independence of each other. I cannot say, you made me angry. I can only say, what you did, I chose to get angry about it. But I can't blame my emotions on her. On the other hand, I don't have to feel responsible for her emotions, unless I've deliberately done something to provoke it, but that's something between me and me. It's not something between her and I. I don't want to make that decision. But we've declared our emotional independence to be there. Those things have to do more with what's going on in my head than what's going on in my life. In fact, I find in the program, it isn't what happens to me that matters, it's what I think about what happens that matters. That my life my thinking determines my life. And my thinking is run by a committee of people in my head. A committee about the size of the people in this group. Yeah. And you're very quiet. You're sitting there very attentively. People in my head talk. They all talk. Every one of them talks. Talk. In fact, that's all they do. They don't do any work. They just talk. They make suggestions. And sometimes they're very strong. Sometimes they do it now. They're up there arguing as to what I should talk about next. They say, tell them this and tell them that. No, don't tell them that. Tell them that. They get to arguing among themselves. And I think, my God, why don't you people shut up there? You know. They all shut up, and I can't think of anything to say. You know, my whole life has been based on getting along with them. I thought I had to get along with people out there, and I'd be comfortable on the inside. And I find out in the program it's just the opposite. I've had to get comfortable with those people in my head, and then that's reflected into the people on the outside. And it's been a lot of work getting comfortable with them. There's one of them up there that's afraid. He's afraid. No matter what it is, he says, oh my God, don't do that. You'll screw it up and they'll all laugh at you. Somebody says, speak at a meeting. Somebody says, lead a meeting. Somebody, be a sponsor. Ask somebody to be a sponsor. Whatever. No matter what it is, he says, oh my God, don't do that. You'll screw it up and they'll all laugh at you. He's always been there. He's always followed me around. There's another one up there, though, that is just the opposite. He says, with this program, you can go anywhere, face anybody, and do anything. And nobody can harm you. There's only one way anybody can harm you, and that's to make you take a drink or a drug. And with this program, nobody can do that to you. Nobody can. So you're safe. You can do that. I mentioned drugs. I know this is an AA meeting. We shouldn't talk about drugs. But I do want to give some honorable mention to amphetamines. Well, I owe them a slight debt. I don't know that I would have had the stamina to have been able to have completed my pre-AA training period if it hadn't been for a few amphetamines. I mean, not many. I never got addicted or anything like that. And I never became a pillhead. And because you ask any doctor how people become pillheads, become addicted, he'll tell you it's because they abuse the pills. You have to abuse pills to be addicted to them. I've never abused a pill in my life. I didn't. First off, they were very tiny little pills. You could tell they were very mild. And in fact, I had my own little pocket. This little pocket The little pocket inside the big pocket is the pill pocket. You carry your pills right there. You can't carry pills just any place. I used to put them over with my change. People say, you got change for $1? You say, oh yeah, and you go like that. They say, oh, you're carrying Nembutol around in the daytime. You put them on the other side over with your keys, and you go to get your keys out to get in your car. The Quaalude runs down the street, The damn thing always runs faster than you can run, And you can't stomp on it or you'll abuse it, I've always been very respectful of my pills. In fact, I never ever took a pill unless I had the symptom that only that pill would relieve. I did. I either had it or I could feel it coming on. Every pill I ever took was medically indicated at the time and prescribed by a doctor. And taken according to directions and dispensed by a pharmacist. And I never abused my pills. And anyhow, these people in my head talk all the time. There's one of them up there. As long as his whole life thing has been to follow me around and whisper in my ear. He keeps his eye on Max. He follows me around and he keeps his eye on Max and he tells me things. That, did you hear what she just said? What kind of a man would be willing to live with a woman who would talk about him like that? Did you see what she just did? Do you see what she's doing now? I mean, he's constantly focusing on her. And I also find that there's another one up there, just the opposite. He watches her too, and he points out, he says, do you see what a great person she is? What a great sense of humor she has. Isn't she attractive? Aren't you lucky that she goes to meetings as much as she does and goes to meetings with you? And he likes to remind me that she's the one that kept going to meetings when I stopped going. The point is that I can watch and see. I can listen to whatever voices I want. I have choices. I don't have the choices. I have responsibility. And whoever I listen to, they tend to move to the front of the room and talk the loudest. And the others that I tend to ignore get kind of annoyed and drift to the back of the room. The one that's, no matter what the situation is, his response is always the same. Well, hell, let's have a drink. Yeah. And now he's still there, but anymore, when he says that, I say, well, thank you for participating. Now, if you'll sit down, we'll call on somebody else, And he says, well, hell with you. And he moves toward, drifts to the back of the room. He's still there. He'll always be there. But as long as I don't listen to him, don't follow his advice, I have the choice. I have the responsibility to make the right choice as to whether to follow the advice. Just because it's there doesn't mean I have to follow it. And whoever I listen to the most, that's what gets the loudest. And I've also found, I come to the conclusion that of all this chatter, and I do mean chatter, it's just like up here I'm drinking water. If I drank coffee, I used to give these people in my head alcohol and drugs to get them all to sleep so I could go to sleep. I had to shut them up first before my mind would shut down so I could go to sleep. And I find now that they're really very sensitive to anything, even caffeine. I mean, ordinarily they talk. If I stood here and drank coffee, we get the talk. I get home, lie down, my body wants to go to sleep, my brain says, no, let's lay here and talk about it for a while. Yeah. And even then I get to sleep, and in the middle of the night they'll say, about 3 o'clock, they'll say, hey, wake up, we've had an emergency meeting, and we need to talk to you. Yeah. You know that thing that you thought you handled so well today, and they were so happy about it? It wasn't like that at all. Yeah. They're really ticked off at you. Wait till morning, you'll find out. And I think, oh, hell, I don't want to listen to that crap. And I'll roll over and go back to sleep. And just as I'm about to go to sleep, I'll think, boy, I'm sure glad I'm not thinking about that anymore. And then they'll hear me and say, oh, I hear you. I'm glad you're still awake. Because we want, you know, that's not the only time you've done that. You know, about 6 months ago, you did the same dumb thing. In fact, you've done a lot of dumb things in your life. In fact, well, let's spend the rest of the night making lists of dumb things you have done, you know. You don't want to write your 4th step? We'll do it right now, you know. Then talk. That's the way they are. But I have found out that in the center of all that chatter, in the very, very center of me, there's a center of calm. And in that center of calm, that's where my higher power is. And he's been there all along, but I didn't know that. And now that I know that, I realize that he's with me wherever I go. And I'm never alone. And not only, it seems to me that that's where my whole being comes from. That's the spark that is me. That's my personality. That's my creativity, whatever it is. My humor, my sense of feelings. Whatever it is that makes me me comes from that very center. And what the hell, I guess. I don't know how to finish that. Except that somehow it seems very profound. I'm glad to be aware of that, because I don't have to go someplace to find my higher power, because he's with me all the time. In fact, one of the things I noticed is that, I heard it one time down at the San Diego convention, a couple thousand people there. The woman was the gal was closing the last meeting or so, and she said at the end of the meeting, when we hold hands and say the Lord's Prayer, instead of looking at the floor or closing your eyes, why don't you look in the eyes of other alcoholics? And I've been doing that and looking for, and when I'm talking to another alcoholic, trying to look in their eyes and see if I can see if my higher power can see their higher power. And when the two are talking to each other, it's tremendous communication. In fact, I think life is a communication problem. Marriage is a communication problem. To try to communicate is an act of love. In fact, that's one of the things I've noticed about in AA. Before AA, the statement, I love you, somehow had so many meanings that it seemed to have no meaning. Even the word love seemed to be so ambiguous. But in AA, I've heard people define love in ways that I like. I remember Don G. said that love is an active concern for another person's welfare, an active concern for another person's welfare. Along that line, I remember one night I called Chuck C. up to ask him, I called him up, I said, what's your definition of love? And he says, it's the same thing at 11 o'clock in the morning it is at 11 o'clock at night. And I thought, geez, he's a crabby old fool. I said, yeah, but what is it? And he says, it's action. Bang, and he hung up. And love is action. And we went to a marriage, enrichment encounter, marriage encounter. There is an organization called Marriage Enrichment, too. Went to a marriage encounter weekend, and the motto was that love is a decision. Love is a decision. It's not just a feeling, it's a decision. I think it's a daily decision. And I remember I heard the definition that love is making the other person feel important. Love is making the other person feel important. In fact, my theory of what makes an alcoholic an alcoholic. I don't know if it's true or not. If it isn't, if you know it isn't, don't bother to tell me. I like being convinced that I know what makes an alcoholic, and I will. But the way I see it, and all the evidence seems to point out to this, seems to me an alcoholic is a person who, whether they want to or not, and perhaps even more so if they don't want to, an alcoholic is a person who generates a great deal of love and lacks the ability to express love. That builds up like pressure in a tea kettle. Become uncomfortable. They put alcohol in to suppress the feelings. It seems to help. It helps the feelings, but it makes the situation worse because it compounds the communication problem. Not only can they not express love, they can't receive love. So that the people that live with the alcoholic can't express their love. And the same thing happens. The pressure builds up, it becomes very uncomfortable, and it can't be expressed as love. Has to come out. So it comes out as resentment, anger, frustration, hostility, maybe even violence, all of which keep compounding the communication problem. Nothing to do about a problem like that. Doctors can't help you. Clergy can't help you. The psychologists don't know what the problem is. No place to go. People like that, what do? They end up as newcomers. That's right. When there's no place else to go, they end up as newcomers in AA and Al-Anon. What do we do with newcomers? We love the hell out of them. We love the hell out of their hellish lives. We treat them, we make them feel important, because they are. To us, they are important. We need them. As I understand it, this alcoholism is a disease. It's a medical problem. 2, it has a spiritual answer. And 3, we have to give that message away in order to keep it. The more we give it away, the more we got it. When we stop giving it away, we don't got it no more. So the newcomer is important to us. And we make them feel important. And we show them how to behave at a meeting, how to act loving at a meeting. It's a loving thing just to sit in the meeting, listening like you're doing now, just sitting quietly. No matter what, I've seen you do it many times. No matter what's going on at the podium, you sit quietly and listen, or pretend to be listening, or whatever. It's part of it. It's a loving thing to take the risk, whatever risk it is, to come up here to talk, and it's a loving thing to sit quietly and listen. So we love each other to health. We make each other feel important because we are important to each other. It's a we program. In fact, I've tried taking that home. That business of making the other person feel important. I thought, what would be a way that's not too icky, sticky, gooey, lovey-dovey, to make Max feel important? Well, I realized that Max likes to wake up actually, Max hates to wake up. But when she does wake up, she likes to wake up to a hot cup of coffee. She doesn't like hot coffee, and she hates cold hot coffee, but she likes hot coffee with 2 ice cubes that haven't melted yet. She likes the ice cubes to be there, because if they're not there, she wakes up to a problem, because she doesn't know whether they're there or not. She said, "Did you put the ice cubes in this coffee?" So she likes to see them there, so she knows they're there. Now, I get up before Max does. The whole world gets up before Max does. And I get up and I take care of Lily and Sabrina, our 2 Ala dogs. They're out in the car. They said to tell you hello. I go to Max's Al-Anon meetings. She comes to my AA meetings, and Lily and Sabrina come to all our meetings. They come to more meetings than a lot of people that are trying to stay sober. They have nicer personalities than a lot of people that are trying to stay sober. Anyway, I take care of Lily and Sabrina, and I go to my computer and I write my letter to God. I do automatic writing. And I used to write him a long list of gratitude lists, and he got so sick of reading it, he asked me to skip that. And I just tell him I think he's doing a great job and keep on doing his job. And essentially, if I have a problem, I'll automatic writing, just writing as fast as I can, not paying any attention to punctuation, but describing the problem as fast as I can. And it's amazing to me, the more I do that, the more often I do that, it's amazing how the answer to the problem evolves even before I finish describing the problem. And if it doesn't come out at that time, it comes during the day, someday, or I awaken with it the next morning when I'm not thinking about it. The answer will come there. But essentially what I do is I tell God, you're doing a good job. You keep on doing what you're doing. You make happen today whatever you want to have happen today, and you have come into my life whoever you want to have come into my life today. You have them say what you want them to say, and have them do what you want them to do. And whatever happens today, and whoever comes into my life and whatever they say and do, I'll know that's your will for me this day. Now you go have a good day, and I'll check with you in the morning. I figure if he has a good day, I'll have a good day. And then it's about time for the Queen to wake up. And so I go to get Max's coffee, and there's certain cups she likes to use. She doesn't like the brewed coffee. She likes instant coffee. Well, she likes any instant coffee as long as it's U-ban. It has to be U-ban coffee. And she doesn't like it too strong. She hates it too strong. Doesn't like it weak. She likes a level teaspoon. Level teaspoon of U-ban in the bottom of the cup. She doesn't like, hates milk. Doesn't like cream. She likes cream or powdered cream. Lots of that. 2 heaping teaspoons full. Level teaspoonful of U-ban, 2 heaping teaspoons full of cream or bottom cup. You don't boil the water. You take the water out of a hot water dispenser. Hot water dispenser is a spigot that's over here and has a tank underneath the sink, and you have to hire a man to come in. He has to drill a hole about that big in the stainless steel sink that replaces the perfectly good white porcelain sink that was there. But the hot water, it dispenses water at just the right temperature for putting the 2 ice cubes in it. And then as you run the water in, you swirl a cup around like this, because she hates it when the coffee cakes at the bottom of the cup. But you don't swirl it too hard, or it'll go slosh around the top and make the bottom of the cup wet. You don't want that. And you fill it up, but leave room for the ice cubes to go in. And you don't plop them in, you have to slide them in so it doesn't slosh over and down the bottom side, because you don't like it wet on the bottom of the cup. And then you walk into the darkened bedroom, and be real careful where you walk, because it's painful to step on those high-heeled shoes in your bare feet. And be real careful as you go up along the side of the bed, because those glossy magazines are real slippery. And when you get to the bedside stand, you don't look for a bare spot. You just look for a level spot. And you put the coffee down, and you turn around, and you don't cheat now. You don't bump the bed or do anything to wake her up. You hope that she'll wake up before the ice cubes melt. Now, you see, now that all of that is the easy part. The hard part is you don't dare hope she'll appreciate it. Because see, if you want her to appreciate it, then you want something in return. And Chuck C says love is for free and for fun, expecting nothing in return. If you even expect appreciation, it's not love, it's barter. Pretty harsh rule, it seemed to me. But I can't complain because Max is very, very cooperative. She never appreciates it. That's why you stay married 52 years. When we have a problem between us, we discuss it. I tell her what I think, and she tells me what she thinks, and we do it her way. We get by on a let go and let Max. Anyway, my time is up. The thing that impresses me was that I drank for many years, came to AA, and after 7 months turned into a mild alcoholic. Have gotten more alcoholic ever since, but on July 31st of 1967, I accepted the fact that I, of all people, even though I had no choice in the matter, had never occurred to me to anything about it, with some odd mistake, somebody's mistake, I ended up an alcoholic, mild alcoholic. I accepted that fact, and I haven't had a drink since that day. And July 31st of this year, and I don't say God willing, because God's always willing, July 31st of this year, I will have been married, I've been without a drink for 25 years. Now that amazes me, that the simple fact of accepting my alcoholism means, and I haven't had a drink since. And I think, what happened? Why was accepting my alcoholism that potent? And I'm not sure of the answer, but it seems to me that when I accepted my alcoholism, I moved from living in the problem to living in the answer. I feel sure that I moved from living in the role of victim to the role of hero in my own life story. I think what I did, I think I accepted the challenge of living life successfully in spite of the fact I can't drink like other people. I accepted the challenge of getting as much out of life as I could possibly get, just in spite of the fact I can't drink like other people. I know that I went from being a whiner to being a winner. And I think that's what Alcoholics Anonymous is full of, winners. I almost said whiners. We have one or two. And I think there are times when we do need to do some whining. But sharing a problem is not whining. In fact, I'll touch on that. But before I finish that business of accepting, I'm so impressed with the power of accepting my alcoholism that I try to apply that in every aspect of my life today. And it seems to work in all aspects of my life. Accepting life on life's terms instead of what? If you don't accept life on life's terms, what's the alternative? What's the opposite of acceptance? Denial, anger, resentment, pouting, bitching, whining, fighting. I can't think of a satisfactory substitute for acceptance. I mean, you put your energy into fighting the problem instead of putting the energy into living life to its fullest. So it seems to me that acceptance to me, it's the only way to go. It's the only way to go. In fact, the thought occurs to me that why not accept it? I mean, because if you don't accept life doesn't have a. Who cares if you don't like it? Is what I'm trying to say. If you don't like a product, you can take it back. But what are you going to do with life if you don't like it? Who gives a damn? I mean, I just can't imagine one of God's messengers running up to God and saying, "Oh, God, we got a problem. Paul doesn't like the day we sent him." Yeah. I can hear God's been working like the devil. I mean, working very hard, creating reality, and I can just hear him saying, "Oh, tell him he can go to hell." But this is something key to thought about whining. I'm very aware of this idea that we are as sick as our secrets. I just had an occasion to go through that, and I had something I couldn't share, and it really was very difficult for me. It was just before we went to Club Med. 2 days before I got on the airplane to go to Club Med with 430 alcoholics, I got word that I had cancer of the prostate, and it was how yourself. In fact, I'm surprised I can say that, because to say cancer of the prostate, that seems so uncool to have a prostate cancer. But I say I can get rid of it. But I did it before I went off to Club Med to a vacation thing, and that didn't seem to me to be the place to talk about cancer, so I couldn't share that problem. And I carried it with me for a week. And I got sicker and sicker because I couldn't unload that and get rid of it. But once I could start sharing it and telling it to people, that statement that a problem shared is a problem halved became true for me. And every time I share it, it becomes less and less. And as a matter of fact, I've gotten back, had the bone scan, and found out that's negative, and they're going to cut it out and throw it away, and I'm going to live forever. So people are counting on me being gone, have to change their plans. And my feeling is that, and the whole thing is far less ominous than it seemed at the time. And I don't know how much of that is due to getting the reality of it and getting the true facts, and how much of it is just sharing the damn thing so I can walk away from it. So now I've shared it, it's your problem, not mine, and I can forget it. Thank you all very much.
For information regarding this tape or others available in the Crown Valley Tapes Library, dial area code 714-249-5624.